The administrative bench of the Supreme Court reinstates list of some political parties for the municipal election. Tonight, we take a look at some of the different court hearings. Cameroonians continue expressing joy over CAF's decision for Cameroon to host the prestigious AFCON 2021. In this newscast, we get reactions of football fans, business persons and officials in the littoral region. 2 women suspected for kidnapping 2 pupils are under police custody in the South region. The women were tracked down by forces of law and order in Ambam as they were transporting the children to an unknown destination. Good evening and thanks for joining us on the 7:30 News. I am Gladys Tata. For the past 3 days, the administrative bench of the Supreme Court has been examining pre-electoral appeal cases for rulings of the administrative courts. So far, lists of some political parties for the February 9 municipal election have been reinstated. In the report that follows, Quinta Rita presents some of the highlights of the different court sessions.
109 appeal cases were tabled before the administrative bench of the Supreme Court by disgruntled political parties contesting the rulings of the regional administrative courts. After 3 days of deliberations, more than 50 were thrown out for poor filing.
The issue about appeals to the Supreme Court, which is a bit technical, and which were the wrong mode by which a lot of appellants went. So those cases were declared inadmissible. Now, there were other cases that were declared inadmissible by virtue of the fact that there was a local standard problem. People who do not have the capacity to appeal.
With the verdict of a good number of cases rendered, some political parties have seen their lists in some areas rehabilitated. These include the NUDP in Petwa, Garawatu and Idinau, the CDP in Akwaya, the ruling CPDM in Kongsamba 3, the MCNC, the CPNR of Kabralibi in some localities, the SDF in Douala 1 and Batibu. The session was suspended last Friday after a heated debate between the SDF, the CPDM and ELECAM. The case concerned a petition filed in by the CPDM in Yaoundé 6 requesting the disqualification of the SDF list reinstated by the Central Regional Administrative Court despite the non-payment of the deposit before the deadline. The SDF argued that they paid on time but were not issued a receipt. The presiding judge, Daniel Ndube Eteki, ordered for more justifications from all parties concerned. Most of the appeal cases center around the use of fake documents, the non-payment of the deposit, the work done by ELECAM, and the nomadism of some candidates.
Political nomadism is a normal human trait, and people can move from one party to the other, and it is also protected by law.
So can these rulings be contested?
By virtue of the law that organizes the functioning of the Supreme Court, it is no longer possible to go on a further appeal after this level of appeal.
The court resumes next Tuesday, January 21st.
The Central Regional Bureau head of the Social Democratic Front says they are getting set to carry out effective campaigns in the forthcoming elections. Although they are still impatiently waiting for the Supreme Court's ruling on some petitions, Emmanuel Tonga contends that the party will be ready on time. Kwanchwa Marie Cledo of CRTV Center with the details.
The Social Democratic Front, SDF, is one of the main opposition parties running for parliamentary and municipal elections in the Central region.
I am going to lead the legislative list of the SDF here in Fundi. It's the first time since 25 years. Concerning the municipal council, we have here in the Fundi 2 lists. I am sure that next week we shall go in the phone with 3 lists, Yaoundé 1, Yaoundé 5 and Yaoundé 6. Makedene also is on the list.
Even as the party waits on the court ruling on some petitions tabled, like the reinstating of the EDZ participation in the Yaoundé 6 constituency, the bureau head says they are no doubt strategizing to ensure a hitch-free start of campaign.
We are preparing like we have almost done it. The SDF is 30 years old. We know how to run an election. We are now preparing to have a launch meeting who will have, especially here in Fundi, who have place here next week. So you are going to have all the news about this preparation and about these strategies that we cannot give now.
Though Emmanuel Tonga declined unveiling their campaign strategies, he noted with confidence that their tactics will surely yield fruit, that of wooing electorate to vote in favor of the ADF party.
A network of journalists to fight against hate speech and other forms of violent communication has been proposed by media men and women in Cameroon. This is one of the recommendations taken after a 3-day capacity building workshop to sensitize journalists on the prevention of electoral conflicts in Yaoundé. Luma Slim Davis tells us more.
The workshop on capacity building and sensitization for the media on preventing electoral conflicts provided an opportunity for journalists to upgrade their skills ahead of the upcoming February twin elections.
We are urged to know the legal framework of elections in Cameroon, because if you don't know, you'll be forced to misinform people, which is not the work of a journalist.
I have the opportunity to understand the impact the media has in sustaining peace during the electoral period. It's the media's responsibility to effectively report true facts without sugarcoating anything.
Emphasis was laid on considering the interests of the population in reporting before other considerations.
This seminar was to draw the attention on the need not to be vectors of hate speech, propagation of hate speech, and also on the type of reporting we should be carrying out during this period of elections.
This training has made us to revisit some of the theories and to concentrate especially on the electoral cycle, and to know what and at what stage which journalists are coming in with which type of information. We have to educate the public on the importance of the electoral process.
3 days of practical exercises and exchanges amongst the participants on the pros and cons of good reporting has certainly set the pace.
Muslims of the Islamic Cultural Association of Cameroon have prayed and appealed to Allah to grant peace in Cameroon ahead of the February 9 twin elections in the country. This was during a prayer session at the Tinga Islamic Complex here in Yaoundé, whereby they prayed for peace and stability to reign before, during and after the elections. Details with Victor Siga.
For a better society void of atrocities like killings, strifes, the Islamic Cultural Association deemed it essential for the Cameroonian people to go down for prayers, especially at a time when the February 9 twin elections is fast approaching.
We organize this ceremony to protect the whole country so that God, the Almighty, can bring back the peace in the whole country, in Southwest and Northwest, in the far north. Everywhere we need peace to develop our country.
After schooling participants on the importance of promoting peace, they took the floor one after the other to call on the mercy of the Almighty God on the Cameroonian soil.
We want to preserve the whole country, so we have to work together. We are all Cameroonians are brothers. We are brothers, so we have to fight. Then we can continue the progress and develop the country.
Founded in 1961, the authorities of this association say they will keep on working for the peace and stability of the Cameroonian people.
In the littoral region, Douala city dwellers, especially football fans, have expressed satisfaction following the decision of CAF accepting Cameroon to host the 2021 African Cup of Nations. Following the announcement by the Confederation of African Football's president, Ahmad Ahmad, René Kache got the reactions and views of some business persons and officials of the region and filed in this report from CRTV Littoral in Douala.
The rumor machines have been put to a complete halt. CAF has spoken. Cameroon will host Africa in 2021. Like a winning goal scored at the 90th minute in a football match, there is an atmosphere of joy, celebration, and gratitude in Douala.
We were also proud of these decisions. And you see, the president of CAF said that we have done more than what was asked to do.
It is the conviction of many here that Cameroon will host the best AFCON ever.
When we host the AFCON Women Cup, people who come to Cameroon were very happy to see the type of organization that we did. Now, we can do the best, we can do more than that.
Some Douala inhabitants are already tilting their attention on the economic benefits the country stands to gain during and after the 2021 AFCON.
We have numerous touristic sites. We have many people doing in arts work. What they are going to present to the numerous tourists who will be in the country that period. So it would really be beneficial for Cameroon.
Many have, however, warned that the country must tread with caution and must continue working hard, for there is no more time.
The country is nothing else but ourselves. So to think about our honor and then to make sure Cameroon will just fulfill what other people are expecting from them.
In the meantime, the city of Douala is already preparing to play a pivotal role in the 2020 CHAN, a tournament that will be used as a dress rehearsal for the 2021 AFCON.
In continuation of our running series on the container terminal of the Douala Seaport today, we make a stop at the Harbour Master's office. This is the department charged with safety and security, as well as scheduling how vessels anchor to release imports and loads for exports. Alphonse Abongwa Achu reports that for the last weeks, 15 vessels programmed by this unit have already anchored at the quay and left with a success record.
One may wonder just how heavy vessels like this one load thousands of containers from one continent and transport them miles away to arrive the Douala Bonaberi seaport before offload. The Harbour Master's office at the port handles these operations as well as the security of the port area.
We are the one who are in charge of maritime operations. We are the one allowing the vessel to enter and to go out. We give them space and we give them necessary aids like pilots and tugboats to let them in and out.
Since the Container Terminal Management (RTC) took charge on January 2, it is said to be living up to the task.
We've already had 15 vessels that came into the RTC terminal and discharged and loaded very well, and they went away. Among the 15 vessels, we have all the major lines that calls the major container shipping line in the world, like MSC, MEX, CMI, CGM. All of them have already 3 calls during these 2 weeks.
With regard to the current performance of the terminal, the Harbour Master's office gives a good rating to the RTC.
From the 2nd of January till today, they've already delivered 4,189 containers to people outside, and they've already received more than 2,100 containers, so the terminal is functioning very well.
This solidifies one rationale: Cameroonian expertise is worth the salt.
Indeed, it's worth the salt, Abongwa. We take you over to the Far North region, where the Minister of Finance has underscored the primordial role of the Cameroon customs in the attainment of the country's budgetary target. Louis-Paul Motaze made the observation in Marua while officially launching activities building up to the International Customs Day in the presence of the Director General of Customs, Fongot Edward Nuvaga. Ayok John Ashu completes that story from our Far North Regional Bureau in Marua.
The working session enabled the Minister of Finance to take stock of the working conditions of his collaborators in the Far North region, recognized as an economic disaster area.
The Far North is a special region, one of the regions that has encountered a lot of difficulties with Boko Haram, and my people here are very courageous because some of them have been killed, Other people have got a lot of problems, but they are still working. They are still trying to do their utmost so as to reach the target.
Louis Paul Motaze took the engagement to improve on the staff strength and infrastructure for optimum output.
I am very satisfied with what I've seen. I promised to them as a Minister of Finance to see with my collaborators in Yaoundé what we can do to enable them to reach their goals and to enable them to have enough means so as to be performant in what they are doing.
For fiscal and moral rearmament and to consolidate a spirit of camaraderie, the workers took part in a keep fit walk along the arteries of Marwa.
So now we're a paramilitary corps, and sports to us is extremely very, very important. We came to the final region with the Minister of Finance to see for ourselves the progress that has been done for the past 3 years. You know, in 2014, we started having very serious issues with trans-border security caused by Boko Haram. And things have been progressing because the offices that were hitherto closed, like Limani Protocol, have now been opened.
Beyond the solemnity of the first official visit of the Minister of Finance to the Far North region in 2020, it was also 72 hours of top-bottom communion.
And the Director of Customs is Edwin Fongot Nuvaga. 2 pupils reported to have abducted by women suspected to be involved in children trafficking in Ebolova have regained their liberty. The kids kidnapped while on their way back from school were identified by a cousin of theirs inside a commercial bus going to Ambam. The latter alerted forces of law and order who organized the trackdown operation that led to the apprehension of the women who are now under police custody while proper investigations are on. Samuel Sawalda recounts the ordeal from CRTV Ebolova.
For some days now, members of this family living at the Ebolova C1 neighborhood have been having sleepless nights following the disappearance of 2 of their children, 5-year-old Jose Kani and her elder sister Paul Esther, aged 10. The 2 are reported to have been kidnapped by a lady while they were on their way back from school. The presumed kidnapper, identified as Rosette, is said to have given her drug to both kids before taking them to Vamesakoy, a suburb south of Ebolova, where they were handed over to Rosette's accomplice in the crime business, whose name we got as Christian. Christian, now in possession of the children, took a public transport bus going to Ambam. Unfortunately for her, she won't go any further, as the kids were identified by a cousin of theirs who was traveling in the same bus around Job on the outskirts of Ebolova. Alerted, elements of the National Gendarmerie stopped the bus at the level of Muyo Sound, a locality found some 45 kilometers away from Ebolova on the Ebolova-Ambam highway. The 2 ladies have been apprehended and are presently under custody, while investigations are underway to determine their real motivations. Meanwhile, it is a happy end for the family that sees after many days 2 of their kids, whom they thought had gone forever.
Secondary Education Minister Professor Nalova Lyonga has called on students of the West region to be disciplined and assiduous. She made the call during her visit to some schools in the Mifi division, where she equally called on the entire teaching body not to relent their mission of educating the youth. Go Henry trailed the minister and sent in this report from CRTV Western Bafoussam.
The visit began here at GBHS Ngwashu, where the Minister of Secondary Education met with the students.
It is good when you have a problem that it's better you discuss and try to find out, and then you make up your mind that you must pass the next one.
Minister Nalova Lyonga recommended dialogue between teachers and students and called on the students to be disciplined and models of punctuality and assiduity. She also visited the government bilingual teachers training college, Bafoussam, and the Lycée Classique, while the Secretary of State at the Ministry, Boniface Bayaola, inspected some institutions in the Mifi. At each stop, they met with the school officials to know how the academic year is unfolding.
They asked me about the incident that occurred last Tuesday in Yaoundé. I'm glad that they are on top of things. When I said, if it were you and you disagreed with your teacher about marks, what would you do? And he said that it is always good, even if your teacher punishes you, to listen to the teacher, obey the teacher before anything else.
The minister was also at the Resource Center for Learners with impairments at Lycée Classique, where she announced that measures will be taken to facilitate inclusion for learners with disabilities in Cameroon.
On to our ICT slot, let's take you to discover some Cameroonian youths who are onto mobile telephone repair without receiving formal training. They are building their technical capacity in a close to 1 month workshop organized by the Ministry of Post and Telecommunication. The workshop that has brought together the students and youth from the informal sector is taking place on the campus of the National Advanced School of Post and Telecommunications and Information and Communication Technologies. Cynthia Etim with the ICT slot.
These youths from across the 10 regions are phone repairers. Daily, most of them pitch their tents on major streets, like is the case at the popular Avenue Kennedy. They use just laptops plus a few other tools to repair bad microphones, speakers and broken screens of mobile phones. They equally help in password recovery.
Here we want to display how we can change a mic that has run bad.
Maybe you have a mobile phone which is faulty. It means maybe you have a bad microphone, you have a bad speaker. I didn't really understand the kind of problems that could come up from the processor and from other components that could really hinder them, making it in such a way that when problems were above me, I was forced to throw away the phones, whereas this training has really told me where the problems could really come from.
To encourage this sector that is keeping many busy, the Ministry of Post and Telecommunications has organized a capacity building workshop for them.
I have been able to learn. I can flash a phone right now. I can also bypass the phone. I can dictate faults from phone using my multimeter. Also give power to a phone or a battery which power is down using my DC power supply.
A training like this has come for me to be able to fix phones in professional manners.
The digital economy sector is a promising one, and through such initiatives, government's aim is to train youths who can be job creators.
Measures to fight against economic detractors who hinder investment in the Northwest region have been intensified with the signing of a memorandum of understanding between the Ethics Committee and a non-governmental human rights organization. This was during a meeting that held recently in Bamenda, as Osla Titanki reports from CRTV Northwest.
The Memorandum of Understanding signed between the Ethics Committee, created to expose economic detractors in the region, and the Advocate of Justice for Victims and the Poor non-governmental human rights organization, abbreviated AJUVIP, is aimed at fighting the injustice faced by some economic operators and other actors involved in development. The head of the Ethics Committee encourages victims to make use of their services.
Whoever is a victim, yes, of economic sabotage, yes, should inform us. And when that person when he informs us, we would take steps to restitute his rights.
According to the coordinator from the non-governmental organization, they are ready to expose individuals or group of persons carrying out acts to retard economic development in the region.
We are going gradually, because we had not done this sensitization. Now that we have done the sensitization and everybody is aware, we will now put people to book.
Though aware of the challenges ahead, both signatories are confident that with the collaboration of economic operators and other actors in the region, sanity will be restored.
Over 400 internally displaced persons in Bongé subdivision in the southwest region have received humanitarian aid such as mattresses and other basic commodities from the presidential couple. This was during a ceremony that took place in Bongé subdivision, chaired by the divisional officer for the area, Otto William. Details with Yvonne Ngowo in Boya.
The relief materials from the presidential couple have come in timely to alleviate the suffering of over 400 internally displaced persons in Bongé. According to some of the beneficiaries, the sleeping kits and food items will serve them for a long period of time.
It won't be one of my greatest needs.
meeting the needs of the hour. So I'm really very happy for it.
The divisional officer of Bongé, Otto William, while appreciating the humanitarian gesture from the presidential couple, used the occasion as opportunity to further preach peace, development and back to school in Bongé.
85% of the population which is back. We are carrying out sensitization campaign for the children towards their parents to come back. We have schools in Bongé in September.
The event, which took place at the Bongé grandstand, also witnessed the presence of the mayor of Bongé Council, Chief Daniel Mata Mokambe, who encouraged the population not to be misled but urged them to instead exercise their civic responsibilities in the upcoming municipal and parliamentary elections.
And in a related development, over 1,000 internally displaced students in public and private schools in the East region have also received with great joy the pedagogy kits offered to them by the Minister of Secondary Education. The event, which took place on the campus of the Government Bilingual High School in Bertua, was presided at by the Secretary General at the East Governor's Office in the presence of the East Regional Delegate for Secondary Education, amidst other dignitaries. Elizabeth Bombone Agbo reports from Bertua.
By displaying their talents in songs and dance, the 1,232 internally displaced students from the 4 divisions of the East region are expressing their gratitude to the Minister of Secondary Education for the pedagogy kits.
I feel very, very happy because some of us thought we were being abandoned, but today we say we are very, very happy.
The expression of joy is equally rekindled by some school principals.
Most of them came here, they did not have textbooks, they did not have even exercise books, even pens. We are very grateful to the Minister for this gesture.
Handing the pedagogy kits to the 4 divisional delegates of secondary education, the Secretary General at the East Governor's Office reiterated on government's willingness to ensure education for all.
Every Cameroonian is in the preoccupation of the government. The government is preoccupied and must do everything to enhance the life of our citizens.
And as the students back home with the textbooks, school bags, exercise books and other gadgets, they were reminded by the East Regional Delegate for Secondary Education, Simplice Heman Bejabo Malapa, to make good use of the material so as to improve on their academic performances.
CPDM members of the 3 wings of the party in Fako Southwest region have been urged to close ranks so as to ensure a landslide victory for the CPDM party in the division during the February 9 elections. The head of the Fako Permanent Divisional Delegation of the CPDM, Honorable Emilia Monjowali Faka, made the appeal while chairing a pre-election sensitization meeting in Limbe to educate members of the party on the stakes of the election. Ombo Suzy Monjowa reports from Boya.
The CPDM pre-sensitization meeting in Limbe was organized by the Fako Permanent Divisional Delegation to prepare the terrain ahead of the campaigns for the February twin elections. It brought together party officials and party leaders in Fako Division of the Southwest region.
The objective is to prepare our candidates. Before going for the campaigns, I thought that we should come in, sensitize ourselves, tidy our house, and wait for the visitors to come and help us to campaign and lead us towards victory.
It was also an occasion for the candidates of the upcoming elections to raise funds as the campaigns approach.
As candidates, we should show our willingness, our preparedness, that we are prepared to go in for these elections. And the only way we can tell our party that we are prepared is for us to show a sign of involvement.
As they await the launch of the campaigns, party members were exhorted to set their differences aside and work as a team for the general good of the party, ensuring that the party wins all seats in Fako Division during the upcoming elections.
The women wing of the CPDM party in Fundi 3 has been educating its supporters on the recommendations of the major national dialogue and the need to mobilize to vote during the February twin polls. The conference, organized by the WCPDM president for Fundi 3, Sidoni Therese Ndemba, witnessed the presence of the CPDM section president Andre Mamafuda. Emanuela Vemnui reports.
They call this a dance to celebrate an entire day well spent, better understanding the recommendations of the major national dialogue, and at the same time mapping our strategies on how to give the CPDM list in the Mfundi 3 section unquestionable victory during the February 19 polls. Members of the women's wing of the CPDM from Mfundi 3 have resolved to fully mobilize and vote the 7 women who are candidates in the elections to victory.
We need to sensitize our militants that they have to go and vote. We need a good vote at the end of the 9th of February 2020.
The conference of the WCPDM is chaired by the section president for Mfundi 3, Andre Mamafuda, who salutes the 40% number of women councillors in the section and calls on them to make their voices heard through the ballot box in under 22 days. Before them all, a motion of support is addressed to their party chairman, Paul Biya, in which the women of Mfundi 3 renew their support to him before dancing their way home full of do's and don'ts during elections.
On our book of the segment today, we read a book titled The Human Mind and the Ejagam Child, authored by Robert Etandum. In 250 pages, the author tells the tales of how man lives as a spirit before being conceived in the womb to take human form. The retired soldier of the Cameroonian army shows in his book that reincarnation of a human being after death is not evil. Emanuela Vemnier read the book for the 7:30 News.
In The Human Mind and the Ejagam Child, the author, Etandum Robert, brings the reader to the reality that the mind is the seed coat of the spirit. According to him, a human being lives in the spirit before being conceived in a womb to wear the human clock.
They never will reveal to you how you were living before you were born. This corpse is just a clock that the spirit is carrying. So that spirit was living before it came to wear this clock. Therefore, after that, it can still continue life forward.
The Ejagam Child represents a man who through prayers thought he was a super being until he realized otherwise. In 250 pages, written in a language easy to understand, the author tells the tales of African traditions and worship to God.
God created you to live forever. And so if you die in interception, you go to the ancestral well and you can gain grace to come back to reincarnate and continue life. So let us not think that reincarnation is evil and you cannot identify the reincarnated people along the street.
The Human Mind and the Ejagam Child will thus traces Christ coming to earth and more.
We think we can only learn from what they teach us, but we don't seek to know. Ask for wisdom, ask for knowledge, ask for intelligence, ask for understanding. It will be given you.
The author, Robert Etandum, is a retired soldier of the Cameroonian military and hails from Ejagam, a tribe in Manu Division, Southwest Region.
And with that report by Emanuela Vemnier, we draw the curtains for the 7:30 News. Thanks for watching. And in another 30 minutes, join Ata Badine Umar for the 8:30 News. I'll be your host tomorrow, same time. Until then, it's bye from all of us on the 7:30 crew. Good night.